Good afternoon and welcome to English for Teachers 3. This lesson we're going to be talking about exams and testing, ways of evaluating. Today our phrase of the day is horses for courses. So we do like our idioms using animals. In this case we've got horses again. Horses for courses. Very nice assonance, isn't it? That same O. Horses for courses. Nice. Okay, more horses. What do horses do? Who studies horses? Can you see that little box there? You can see three horses in a horse race. And in fact, you can see lots and lots of information if you were a horse fancier or a horse expert. That will tell you the weight of the horse, the colors it's wearing, all its results in the past, whether it likes running on hard ground or soft ground, all sorts of different things, if you could be bothered to interpret or decipher this information. In any cases, horses for courses. What does it mean? It means that different people have different needs, have different skills. So when we're talking about different students, maybe one who might be good at art and another one who's interested in history, well, we'd say, well, horses for courses when we speak about different people. Okay, and today we're going to be talking about some qualities, so things that you love, things the world needs, things which you are good at, things which you can be paid for. Those together make up a term which we call ikigai. We will see what that is on the next slide. But stop the presentation here and try to make a note of some of those words. Things you love, things the world needs, things which you are good at, and things which you can be paid for. Stop now and make a note. And this is our idea of ikigai, which is a Japanese expression, which gives you your vocation or, the balance in your life, that difference, that combination of passion, mission, profession, and vocation. Okay, maybe you want to look that up on the internet. Ikigai from, I believe, the island of Hokkaido, which has the world's longest living group of people. Why is that important? Well, obviously, people feel differently about exams, assessment, and evaluation, and they react differently as well. So here are some words which are specific to examinations. Look at that for 1 minute and try to mark the words which you think are specific to exams. Stop the presentation now and try to make a note of those words for 1 minute. And these are some of the features of exams which we know most exams should meet. On the right, you have some definitions, and on the left, you have the words. So you should try to read the definitions on the right, and try to fill in the space on the left. So the exam must give an accurate indication of what is being tested, and the marking scheme should be uniform, so that the results of a test taken today will be the same as tomorrow. I wonder what word that is, begins with R. P, our assessment must be well structured, easily understood and easy to organize. These are all exams, of course. You then have V, B, O, and F. You will only know F if you are familiar with the term for B. So take 2 minutes now and try to complete those words, please. After 2 minutes, come back and you'll see the next slide. There are our words then. Reliable, practical, valid, or validity. Backwash, that might be new for you. Backwash, which is talking about the amount of time you spend preparing your students to give or to do an exam. I wonder if this is a good thing or a bad thing. How much time do your students spend learning to do a test, and how much time do they actually spend learning? Then we have objective, and obviously we then have forward wash, which is possibly a much more positive feature, because forward wash would be the extent to which you design an exam to test exactly what your students have seen and how they've seen it. So you might have student-friendly examination techniques which help them remember things that they've done before. So that would be forward wash. I normally think that that's quite a positive thing. So we know then that exams, examinations, evaluations, assessment must meet all these different conditions to be considered to be a reasonably good or effective assessment or exam. I wonder what this says about evaluation. Take a minute to read and take a few notes. Stop the presentation for a couple of minutes, take a few notes, and then come back. And so this would be a perfect example of our horses for courses. I wonder what kind of tests you could think of and exams which might make things particularly difficult for one kind of student or another. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. This was not Albert Einstein, this was somebody else, but Albert Einstein said a lot of other very intelligent things, I believe. So within the world of evaluations and exams and tests and so on, which we're going to call assessment, we're going to call them assessment instead of evaluation. Think for a moment, what's the difference between assessment and evaluation? Stop the presentation for 1 minute. Possibly assessment and evaluation are much the same, but evaluation, as we can see, is normally going to be scalable, or at least on a scale, isn't it? Where assessment is something which is a wider concept, not necessarily giving a score. So assessing something is a wider concept, and evaluation is one part of assessment. But we do tend to use them individually. If you're going to be doing, you're great educationalists, I know, and so you obviously should know the difference. Look it up. We've got different kinds of assessment: summative, formative, diagnostic, proficiency, and peer review. So I wonder again, could you take 5 minutes now to try and make notes of the definition and of their different uses? So what's summative assessment? What's formative assessment? What's diagnostic assessment? Proficiency assessment, or a proficiency exam? Not the proficiency exam, not the Cambridge proficiency exam, but a proficiency exam. Peer review, I wonder what that is. So try and write down a definition and try and think when, in which situations, these kind of assessments might be useful. So stop now for 5 minutes and try and take some notes. There we have some of the differences then. Summative, when you You test at the end of the course, the sum of how much the students have learned. And maybe it's useful at the end of a school year to test the simulation of all the content. I think that tends to be what we're doing in most school situations now. Formative, when you test during a course to check whether learning is effective at each stage. So the exam is this constant kind of checking. You might choose to include coursework. And this is good because it allows us to monitor student performance and allow for adjustments. The diagnostic exam is to test the exact level or state of knowledge at a particular point of time. This might be before or during or after the course. But very often we use the diagnostic assessment to decide what kind of course we're going to give or what kind of content we're going to put in. A proficiency test tests the skills or tasks which students are capable of doing. This is very common in vocational activities, and maybe the most famous proficiency test would be the driving proficiency test or the driving test when you get your driving license. Obviously, in English, a proficiency test is going to test the 4 or 5 skills. And then peer review is asking students to rate themselves and others' progress. This might take various forms. It might include presentations, group work, dramatization, role play. And this is good because it encourages participation and rewards effort. It sets benchmarks for those coming through. Benchmarks in a very broad sense, that it's not only what's on paper, that those students coming through from a year below might be able to see that there are multiple options of resources in education and resources in assessment. So stop now for 3 minutes and just read through. And these are different types of exam. I wonder, which type of testing do you use? Are you very limited by your school system? What testing types do you prefer? Spoken product, visual product, or written product? I guess it tends to be written product. But there are many other possibilities. I wonder which ones you've used and which ones you think. Choose one from each column and write a few notes. Stop now for 5 minutes whilst you do that. These are some of the English exams which you might be thinking of doing. From what I've seen, most of you are C1, C2. I would say if you're not C2 now, then you have a good chance of getting there sometime next year. But please ask me which you prefer to do. Most people will go towards the Cambridge proficiency, which is reasonable enough. If you want a C2, that seems to be the best option. However, if you are aiming for C1, I would probably recommend you do something like the Pearson test because it's somewhat easier to prepare. There's no use of English in there, which is a great advantage. And of course, we now have the new language cert, C1, C2, which is now recognized in Madrid, in Andalusia, in Catalonia, in the Basque country, and in other parts of Spain, not in all parts of Spain. The great advantage of the language cert certificate is you can do it at home any day of the year. There's no use of English, and I have quite a lot of material which I'd be able to share with you if you wanted it. In any case, if you do decide to do an English exam, you just let me know, please, and I will help you. These are some, I'm going to ask you now to think about your assignment, which is whether exams and testing prepares students for the world in the future. for their future life. Exams prepare students for decision-making and stress in the real world. Discuss. That's the title of your assignment. So look at the following and decide whether you agree or disagree. Stop the recording now for 5 minutes and make some notes based on the question at the top and based on these concepts and ideas. And this is your assignment. Exams prepare students for decision-making and stress in the real world. 200 to 250 words. You should do this on the platform. It's just after Unit 3 or Class 3, so you can do that online, please, and I will mark it for you. Okay, and you there have a video, which is summative versus formative assessment. So thank you very much. I will see you next week.